Now that we've set up centralized state with Yewdux to store, the contents of a login form to our centralized store and then display that out, we want to start thinking about how we would actually use a centralized store in our real applications. Um, Personally, I prefer a functional component approach when possible, and Yewdux unfortunately isn't that. That being said, Yewdux does have a project, Functional Yewdux, which does allow us to use functional components with Yewdux. This could allow us to use basically one store across both non-functional and functional stores, which would be excellent. So let's go ahead and refactor this entire form that we have, so that way we're seeing we can use a functional components for everything. All right, so to begin with, let's go find it. So we're going to search for Yewdux here, and it's the second link. Something to make note of: the README as of when I'm recording this is still of Yewdux. So if you're seeing Yewdux 010, that's perfectly fine. Just don't be too concerned. If you scroll down to the very bottom, the functional section is down there, and it tells us exactly what we need to do. So the first thing is we need to set up our dependencies, and we don't need to point it at Git. We can still point it at crates.io, and it's going to be fine. All right, so in our cargo toml, we're going to do a Yewdux functional, set it to the latest 010. All right, what's the next thing we need to do? We need to have function components. So let's go ahead and refactor everything over there and sort of like rip out the stores that we're using right now. So for our main app, pretty much everything gets to be deleted except the view. That's what we're really concerned about here. So I'm gonna turn this into a function component, throw an app, put a pub on that, and delete this last curly bracket. We're not going to take into context. We can't take in self. We also don't need this with dispatch anymore. So now we're going to just show login and display form as it is. Okay, excellent. Now because of that, we don't need to have the Yewdux prelude anymore. We don't need to bring in the store at all. Our main app is just sort of ignorant about what the centralized store is, which is great. It's just going to load up whatever we need to display. All right, let's head over to login. Because now I believe we have some errors happening. Is that true? Oh, I need to start up the server. Let's go ahead and do that really quickly. We're going to do trunk serve. Hit refresh, and now we're getting some errors. So basically it's saying, hey, we're missing that with dispatch, so we can't actually connect to the store. All right, well, no problem. We sort of, we figured something like that was going to happen. Let's go ahead and delete everything down to the view for our login component. And we're going to do the same thing. Function component, login, make you public, and we're going to delete this last curly bracket. All right, I'm going to get rid of you. Okay, so first off, we have a bunch of callbacks that we're passing into our form elements that aren't going to work because we're trying to get the store out of here, and that's just not going to work for us. So to begin with, the callback is going to be fine. So I'm just going to not have the store. This is going to return the callback. But we can get the event and prevent default, but we can't really have this state. So I'm going to remove you. And we don't need that log. So it's just basically going to be a callback that doesn't really do anything. And that's going to be fine for right now because we're going to be recreating this. I just want something so that the form still displays. All right, so same thing here. We have this context props. Now this is doing a reduce callback with, which is not something we can handle right now. So we're just going to create a normal callback. So callback from. We're going to be going back to the other type of callback relatively soon. I just want something to make that event work. So we're going to have our event. This is a type event, if I remember correctly. And I just don't need to do anything with it. And I want to do the exact same thing here. All right, then we have our HTML. So we have our onSubmit, which is coming up to here. We have our login title, the two input types. They have their onChanges, and we have our button. Okay, great. We don't have any errors. This is dispatch now is yelling at us. So we need to fix that next. So, sorry, display is yelling at us next. Let's fix you now. I'm gonna come back to here and update you function component. This is display. And remove that. We don't have a self or a context. And because of that, we need to update you. And we're just going to create, let's see, what are you? Oh, these are just grabbing the values for right now. So I am going to set both of these to just not loaded. Okay, library is upset again. Oh, it's display form. I think we're now calling this display again. And okay, here we go. So we're back and running. The interactivity isn't there, so I can enter stuff in. I can click login. Nothing really happens. Not too surprising because we kind of ripped everything that is the store out of it. So let's start with display form. We want this to load in the default of, well, the store itself. So in display, to get access to that, there is now a use, sort of like a handle that we can use. So think of like use store, use state, use effect, use context. Now there's one called use store, and that's something we can grab from Yewdux Functional. Is there a prelude on that? There is no prelude on this, so you don't need to bring it in. Rust Analyzer should find this for you as you start to type it in. So we're going to do let store equals use store. It does need to know what the type of the store is. So we're going to give it, tell it it's a basic store and it's the Yewdux store. That then stores up this, our store. If we come back to our documentation, it actually shows us how we can gain access to this. So we have our store here. Then if we want to access something, we're going to do store.state. So I want the username. So I'm going to do store.state. That gives me an option with a reference to an RC. Then the Yewdux store is inside of that. So I want to do some kind of unwrap here, but the problem is that gives me this RC, and it gets a little bit tricky because it's possible that the store hasn't been initialized when this component first loads, and so just a pure unwrap won't really work for us, at least not the way we expect it to. the documentation shows that we can use something called a map on this. Now you may be used to maps on like vectors, or just how in JavaScript you just put a map on an array. It's very similar to this, even though it's an enum. We can run map on it, and it's going to give us the sum value if there is one. And if there isn't, we can then do this unwrap or default, because outside of this map, we're going to get the store itself. So let's do that here. We're going to say .map. We're going to hand it in a closure. This is going to be the state, and it's really the wrapped state because there's still the RC Yewdux. But when I do a dot into here, it's going to deref inside of Yewdux store and then give us access to username and password. So in this case, I want username. And then I'm going to want to do an unwrap or default. So get me that username, but if you don't have it yet, give me a default, which in this case would be an empty string. And there we go. Now we have username there. Let's do the exact same thing for password. All right, so let's see what, cannot move out has a type string. So let's throw some clones on here. So I'm cloning that out, creating a copy of it, which then goes into this username here. All right, so coming back to our code, we now see that username is empty and password is empty. So excellent, that's exactly what we wanted. All right, next up, we need to set the username into the store, so that way we'll then see it display here as soon as we update it. Because right now, if I put something in, click off, nothing really happens. So back to here, I'm gonna go to our login page. We're gonna be having to change some of these. Let's start with the handle username change. First of all, we're not going to create a callback like this. We're going to use the, we're going to create a store just like before, and then we're going to use the reduce callback with. Exactly the same thing we did with the context, except now we get it from the store. So let's store equals use store. We give it the type, which in this case is a basic store, Yewdux store. And now, okay, so we're going to do store dot, we don't have to do state, we do a dispatch. And now from here, we can do a reduce callback with, we're going to get the state, and then also we're going to get, what type was this? This was just an event. So an event. All right, do you remember how to get this out? We are gonna first get the target. So let's see, we're gonna get this is username equals event dot target. Let's see, from the target, we're going to do an unchecked, let's see. Oh, we have to unwrap because you're an option. Then we're going to do an unchecked into as JS cast. We're going to tell it that I want to go into an HTML input element. And there we go. Okay, well, then I just want the value. And that gives me the string. Okay, excellent. So once I have that, we want to update the state with it. So state.username equals username. And that's happy so far. So we want to do the exact same thing now for handle password change. So I'm just going to copy that, paste that right here, and we're going to make some changes. So reduce callback with, we have our state, we have our event. This becomes password. Everything else remains the same. All right. Okay, so coming down to here, everything should be happy there. Let's try this out. So if I type in Brooks, click away, that updates the store, and our display component now sees that. So we'll put in our highly secure password, and then the last thing is we want to handle the login. So we could just do this as a callback to maybe like store something. If we wanted to update the store to like maybe have a token, let's say after the login happens. So we'll do a token. This could be a string also. Maybe this token is going to be something like a JSON web token, for example. I want to handle form submit. Okay. We're going to do the exact same thing here. So store.dispatch, we're going to do a reduce callback with. Now, do we really need to? We could probably just do a reduce callback because I don't actually need to take anything in. I don't really care about that. Well, no, that's not really true. I do care about that. I need to, I was thinking that I can just skip everything, but I need the event to do the prevent default. So we're going to have our state and the event, and this is a focus event. So we're going to do a event.prevent default. Once that is done, we want to maybe, we'll just like pretend that we get, say like do a HTTP call to a server. So like actually do the login. We're going to get the token back. So let our token equals super high secure. I'm sure it's going to be something like that. Let's turn that into a string. And now we want to just store this into the store. Store.token equals token. No field token on type. I have a token there. Derives default. Let's see. I want to make sure that this isn't a problem with REST Analyzer. I'm going to restart that. Sometimes REST Analyzer gives me bogus errors. Unknown field. Okay, so let's see. Also, let's double check our. We have okay, so it is a real compile error. So it's our login rs line 21. Store.token equals token. This is saying no field token on type. In the store, I have in Yewdux store, I have this token here. This store is basic store, Yewdux store. This state is the Yewdux store. Oh wait, state, store, it needs to be a state. State. Now I can access it. I was accessing this store, which was a little bit unhappy with me. Also, I didn't need to do that whatsoever. So this stores that token away. Let's go ahead and display this too. We'll grab the token out. And so now when we complete our login, we should now see a token just sort of display down below. So we're going to have, that's not actually showing me. I have a compile error. Move occurs. Right, I have to do a clone. Just like the other ones. Now I see the token here. Okay, so we're going to do Brooks, 1, 2, 3, 4, click login. We have these in our state, and also the token happens here. What is nice to know is the onChange event does fire before the click event for login. So if you were just in this last form field, you hit return, or you click into here, it will fire and then store that data into the store before it actually sends the data out to be logged in, which is kind of important to have all the data there. Anyways, that is how we can switch over and use a functional store using Yewdux in our application. There's a couple other stores that we can possibly use. Before I was sort of like played with Yewdux, I also found one called Bounce. That's also a really nice one. It doesn't have the ability to work with struct components. It just works with a functional component. So if that's the only thing you need, perhaps that could work with you too. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.